they have like the biggest contribution to my life. Like I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for them, 100%.
At that time, I mean, squash was meant for the privileged few. It wasn't a spectator-oriented game.
Trust me, a lot can happen, and you will, if you work hard enough and consistently enough, but all that can only happen if you have goals in mind. Well, let's say in India, I'm not saying don't encourage, right? But don't encourage to a point where mediocrity becomes the gold standard.
Saurav, you've accomplished so much in your career. But looking back at the different stages of your journey, how has your definition of success evolved over these stages?
I think as athletes, we are one of the best athletes in the world and believe that we deserve the platform of the biggest sporting event in the world, which is the Olympics, to showcase that.
You announced your retirement at the age of 38, but then you decided to play again for a couple of more years. So why that change in heart?
What lasts is the glory, but that is, you have to make sure that it is external and it is not internal. Because I feel like if I get caught up in all of that, my search for that perfection is going to dwindle.
Hi Saurav, welcome to my show. Your achievements, your journey has been so incredible. You've been India's only squash player to be ranked amongst the top 10 in the world in the men's category. You won for India the first ever medal in any large international event. That's the bronze medal in the Asian Games in 2006. You won India's only ever individual medal in squash at a Commonwealth Games. That's the bronze medal in the Commonwealth Games of 2022. You got the silver medals in the individual category in the Asian Games of 2014, 2023. You were also a part of the team that won the gold medal for the team events in the Asian Games of 2014 and 2023. And of course, the Arjuna awardee. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And it's going to be a pleasure to learn what went behind this incredible journey of yours.
No, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure and privilege, and I'm just feeling good now with everything that you said about me. So thank you for making me feel happy.
All well deserved. Let's start from the beginning of your journey. We know that you started playing squash when you were about 8 years old. But how did squash happen to you? And at that age, early childhood, did you know that there was something special in you to excel in sports?
So I think as far as I can remember, I don't know, even if I was like 2, 3 years old, I just love sport.
Okay.
Anytime I had, even like 5, 10 minutes where I could go down and play anything, it was like sport is the thing that I wanted to do, whether playing, watching, whatever it was. I actually played badminton before I started playing squash. But then my family, we were in Chennai, and that's where I played badminton. And then we moved to Calcutta, where I was originally born. But we moved there when I was about 8, and we didn't have access to badminton courts. And it just so happened that squash was the easiest thing to get into in terms of access. And happenstance in a lot of ways. My father used to play, so he was the one who kind of introduced me to the game, and that's how squash happened, really. In terms of whether I was special, no. I mean, at that point in time, I didn't even know, what being special at the sport meant. It was just the pure joy of being able to kind of run around and, in this case, hit a ball against a wall, which sounds very weird, but yeah, it was just very enjoyable, and I'm so happy that I could make what I made of it in all these years. At that point in time, there wasn't even a strand of thought in my mind that, this is what I'm going to do for the next 30 years of my life, where it's going to take center stage in a lot of ways.
Hmm. But also at that time, I mean, squash was meant for the privileged few. It wasn't a spectator-oriented game. So, what made you choose squash over, say, popular games like cricket and tennis?
That's an interesting question. I used to play cricket very seriously till I was 13. I actually trained at Arundel's Cricket Coaching Academy in Calcutta as well. And then I was going into class 9, and I'm sure you know as a mother that, academics take a very, very important part of your life, especially with Indian families. But, in general, I think it was difficult to pursue two sports very strongly and do the academics once you kind of get to that age. And why I chose squash over cricket, I think in retrospect now, I feel like the 45 minutes to an hour that I spent on the squash court at that time, I just felt that that was the happiest moments in my day. I love playing cricket as well, but playing inside kind of this four-sided wall cage almost, trying to work out things and problem solve on the spot at the pace at which the game is played. I think it kind of enamored me in a different way. Also, in a weird way, I felt like my destiny lay in my own hands, with it being an individual sport versus cricket being a team sport. But I think that played into my psyche as well, and played into my decision to kind of choose squash at that point in time. And I think I was very innocent, right? I was 13 years old. I was just thinking about, what gave me the most joy. And squash gave me the most joy. It's as simple as that. There were no kind of external factors or motivations which were guiding that decision. And I think that was very important in a lot of ways, because I think if it did, I wouldn't have played for so long, whatever it might have been, because I genuinely love the sport and I genuinely love it even today.
So nice to hear that. And I think this is going to resonate a lot with lots of squash players. But also tell me, you spoke about academics and athletics, and clearly a lot of athletes then have to give a back burner to their academics. But as you said, you were focused on academics, and then you trained hard for squash. You trained in Chennai, then you went on to do your studies in economics and management at the Leeds University. And not only were you balancing academics and squash, but you were actually achieving a lot, spectacular achievements in squash. So how did you balance this?
So I think something that sport teaches you, right? And I feel it's the case with the best athletes in the world, which people don't kind of see because that's not what you see on your TV set or when you go to a live kind of event. That's the end performance. What goes on behind the scenes is what makes or breaks an athlete. And what makes or breaks an athlete is how professional he or she is outside of the public eye, right? How you can manage your time and do the things that you need to do on a daily basis consistently, showing up every day. That's what makes you a great athlete. And I think that translates into life as well. If you are able to do that, I think you can manage your time well enough. I think it's about finding, the right times in the day, and also in your mind understanding, how long you need to devote to each craft almost, to make the best of it. And only you can be the best judge of that. No one else can kind of tell you that, okay, you need to study for, let's say, 5 hours in the day to be able to produce this. No, you know whether you need to do it for 3 hours or 7 hours. And it's the same with squash in my case as well. Like, there's no like hard and fast rule that you have to train for like 6 hours in the day, right? It's all about doing it with quality, whether that be for like 1.5 hours or for 3 hours. Doing quality for like an hour is way better than doing quantity for 4 hours without great quality. So I think that really, really helped me. I think I'm also kind of blessed in some ways where I do have photographic memory. So if I kind of read something with a lot of focus, twice or maybe thrice, I kind of like remember it as a picture. So I mean, I was lucky in that sense, but I think the most important thing is managing time is very important. Whether you're balancing both, whether you're doing one craft or not, without time management, you're going to get nowhere. Because you won't be able to put the work in the right way consistently over a period of time. And that is the key to success, no matter what anyone says.
That's so well said. That's true. Uh, when you were young, I mean, you're talking of that period, all hard work, time management, that's correct. But also, you needed a lot of focus, especially at that time, there can be enough distractions. So, how did you keep your mind, decluttered from all the distractions?
I don't think it was a conscious decision, to be honest. I think when you kind of feel this kind of desire inside you to kind of really, really achieve something, I think that drives you to do the things that you need to do. So of course, I wanted to, go out with friends and do X, Y, Z and whatever. But at the end of the day, every decision you make is a choice, right? Again, I don't like to say that it's a sacrifice because it's a choice that I made because I felt like, again, going back to my kind of thing of joy, this is the joy that I got. It was the best thing that I did, right? So when, let's say, I had to choose between going to the squash courts and training versus, let's say, going out for coffee with friends, um, it was a choice that I made to go play squash because I felt like I was going to be the happiest doing that. And that happened on a consistent basis. And I keep going back to saying that it's a choice because if it's not a choice that you make willingly and where you don't feel comfortable and happy about it, you won't be able to make it for long enough. And if you can't make it for long enough, you will not have the consistency, like I said, right? So I think you have to internalize that desire and that choice to be able to do it. If you aren't able to do it, that means your desire for that particular thing is not
It's not
strong enough,
enough.
right? So there must be something else that you want to do then, which is going to make it strong enough. So so when they say, there's like in Hindi movies, they say ek junoon sa aa gaya tha, like you have to have that passion and that enthusiasm and that desire to kind of guide your choices. And if that passion is not strong enough, then your choices are not going to be guided in the right way. And I think, when anyone says that, you have to do this or you have to do that, the whole concept of have to is not going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, that drive and that passion has to come from within. It cannot be imposed from top. It has to come from within.
But if that doesn't come from within, then you're not going to be able to do it because achieving these goals, and goals must be hard. It can't be easy goals because then it's not challenging you as a person enough. And if it's not challenging you, then you're not growing enough. So if these goals are hard, it can't be easy, right? The journey cannot be easy. It has to be hard because if it was easy, everyone would get to world number one, right? Everyone doesn't. There are only a handful in the history of the game who've gotten to world number one. I haven't gotten to world number one. I've put in so much work, but I haven't gotten there, right? So you have to be willing to choose to go through the hard yards and find pleasure in that pain in a lot of ways and internalize it as much as you possibly can.
And also, as you said, goal setting is also very important because you need to have that drive as to where you're going and where you want to go.
100%. I mean, I think that is a big part of being able to achieve things which maybe the outside world doesn't think you can, or even you don't think you can in a lot of ways. Right? So one of the things that I regret almost, and it might sound funny, kind of coming from me, is that I don't think I dreamt big enough for my squash career when I was young. Because, like you said, when I started, it was a game of a select few. India, unfortunately, did not have a very, very rich tradition of top squash players.
That's right.
When I started, we didn't even have anyone in the top 50 in the world in our history. By the time I got into the professional things, the tour, Ritvik Bhattacharya had made 38 in the world, which was the highest at that point in time. So when I was kind of getting into the professional ranks, my goal was like, okay, I need to make top 30 in the world, because it's never been done by an Indian, right? I didn't even know when I started that something called the Professional Squash Association existed to start with. So I think that was one. And then when I thought that, okay, I can be top 30 in the world, everyone around me and the squash world in India was like, no, top 30 is not really possible. So it's not re-emphasizing also that, it can be done, right? And then when I made top 30, it was like, oh, can I make top 20 now? And then top 10 and things like that. Only when I was like probably in my early 30s was when I really thought that, okay, I think I can be world number one. I want to be world number one. The desire to be world number one was not there earlier. And I'm being very honest about this and raw about this. I didn't think I could be world number one. I didn't think I could go up against the world number 1, 2, 3, 4. And if they were playing at their best, I could beat them, even if I was playing at my best. Only in my early 30s when I realized, you know what? If I actually produce what I can produce, and if I work the way I can, and I can impose my game on whoever it is, it doesn't matter how well XYZ is playing, I can still win, right? And then your work ethic and the choices, coming back to the choices you make, right? And that drive and desire changes, right? And that makes you a better player overnight. right? That makes you a better athlete. Your mental kind of makeup changes. You go into matches with a different kind of outlook as to what you're going to gain from this. And I think that is very important. If you can believe in things which are so called out of reach and which
Hmm.
are really high up in the ladder of achievements,
Hmm.
trust me, a lot can happen.
Hmm.
And you will, if you work hard enough and consistently enough, it is possible. But all that can only happen if you have goals in mind. You have to have a purpose. There has to be a purpose which drives you. That is what gives you, in my opinion, the most joy in life.
Oh. You spoke about your father. So, what has been your family's involvement in your entire career, and especially at times when sometimes times are challenging, not so great, and what role does your family play there?
I mean, I'll start with my father.
Hmm.
He's the one who introduced me to the game. He's the one who kind of ushered me into actually playing properly when I was younger. He was the one who looked at what I could do better and things like that. When I was in Calcutta, I didn't really have any coach. He was the one who looked at all of that. And one thing that I have to say, and I mean, I've been playing squash, if you count the juniors and the seniors together, for like 30 years, and I've been playing
Right.
tournaments for 30 years.
And winning major medals for more than 20 years.
Yes, thankfully, but also having lost some big matches in the process, right? And in those 30 years, one thing that I have to give the most insane amount of credit to my father, especially looking at all the parents today who are like, who feel like, their kid has to win and there's so much pressure and things like that. In all this time, there has never been one instance
Hmm.
where after I have lost, my father has come to me and said, "How could you lose?"
Mm-hmm.
Like never,
Okay.
right? And that's not easy to do,
Yes.
right? I'll give you a story. 2018 Commonwealth Games, he's come for all the Commonwealth Games. 2018 Commonwealth Games, Gold Coast, he flew in
Hmm.
on the day of my first round match, right? And I lost. He hadn't even made it to the kind of center to even see me lose. I mean, I still had the doubles left, so he had something to look forward to. But my singles campaign was done,
Done.
right? And
Hmm.
he came, and I mean, I was obviously distraught, and he was shell shocked. And even then, he wasn't like, like, how could you
What
luse?
happened?
Like,
Hmm.
like he
Hmm.
was like, did you not play well? Like, what happened? Blah blah blah. But like, the way you say things and blah. Blah he never made me feel that I've let him down. And that is a very very difficult thing to do.
Right.
So big credit to him. I also think he's always someone. At different points in your career, you have times when you are disillusioned in a lot of ways, and he's the one that I've always gone to, and he's the one who's kind of given a very, I would say, unbiased opinion as
Mm-hmm.
to what my choices are, and never actually said that you should do this. He's always put the cards down on the table and said, do whatever you want to do. This is what you could possibly do moving forward. Do what you feel best, what your gut instinct tells you to do. And again, that is not easy to do. And that's where I feel, he has tried his best to enable me to make
Mm-hmm.
those decisions
Hmm.
so that I can internalize them and feel that yes, I
They're
own this,
my
right?
decisions.
Right, and
Hmm.
that's very important.
Hmm.
The other two people who I think who have made an immense contribution to my career and my life and me as a person are my two grandparents, my father's parents.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather is no more now. He passed away in 2020, but my grandmother is still alive and she's with us. I'm very thankful for that. But these two, like when I moved from Calcutta to Chennai, like you
Hmm.
mentioned, to train when I
Hmm.
was 15,
Hmm.
I still remember this conversation. My father and me and my granddad sitting on his bed, and my grandmom standing at the side of the room near the door, bedroom, and my dad basically telling my granddad that we think he needs to go to Chennai because he's not really had any formal training, and the National Academy was there, so we're going to go there, and he's going to still stay there for at least 2 years for 11th and 12th, and then see what we do after that and things like that. So I'm trying to figure out where he can stay because my father was in a was working in Calcutta and he
Hmm.
couldn't really move. He was giving my granddad all this whatever, and it was like a monologue maybe for like 5 to 7 minutes.
Hmm.
And my granddad literally like listened to him and looks at my grandmother and says, "Do you want to move to Chennai?"
Oh.
And even my dad was like, "Really?" And they were like, at that point in time, my granddad would have been 70,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my
Hmm.
grandma would have been in her late 60s.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like they were like young. Looked at her, and my grandmom goes to my granddad and says, "If you're okay doing it, we will." And
Fantastic.
that's what I said. Then my granddad looked back at my dad and said,
We are
"Find
going.
us a apartment, tell us when we need to move. We are moving. He's not going staying anywhere else." And they moved,
Fantastic. Oh
right? And
my
they
God.
moved, and we were there for 3 years until I
Hmm.
went to England.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, I mean, that's just a small thing, but they are the two most important people who made me the kind of the person I am.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of me like
Hmm.
I can't tell you. Um, like my parents separated when I was like 6. They are the ones who kind of pretty much brought me up. So I think they have like the biggest contribution
Hmm.
to my life. Like I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for them, 100%.
So nice.
So I think, yeah, I think you need to have a support system. In my case, at that point in time in my life, it was my family. But for different people, it could be your friends, could
Yes.
be anyone else, could be a
Yes.
teacher, whatever. Later on in life, Malcolm Willstrop was part of that inner circle, who made a big difference to
So
me.
tell us about Malcolm Willstrop and tell us about your entire, training that you really undertook once you decided to make this a professional career.
So Malcolm Willstrop, in a lot of ways, made me the professional player I am. James Willstrop, his son.
Mm.
I played my first World Juniors in 2002 when I was 16,
Okay.
and that was in Chennai.
Mm.
And James Willstrop won that. I had never seen James before. He was obviously a very, very decorated junior because he had
Mm.
won everything. He was a clear favorite to win, but that was the
Mm.
first time I saw him.
Okay.
And Malcolm was there, but I didn't see him until maybe the second or the third day of the tournament. His reputation at the time was, you know, grumpy old man, very strict
Mm.
and, shouts at everyone and not the most pleasant person to get along with. And I remember James playing a player in the semi-finals, I think, of that World Juniors, and he actually got into a physical altercation with him. He won 3-love, got into a physical altercation because the other guy was, not really behaving properly and things like that. And it just so happened that I was with Malcolm Willstrop back on the bus to the hotel,
Uh-huh.
and I, I mean, this is the first time that I actually seen him where he was really, really annoyed, and he was annoyed with James. Forget the other player, he
Oh.
was annoyed with James because he was like, "Why is he getting involved? X, Y, Z, and blah blah."
Mm.
So I was like, okay, this is really interesting. But I was in class 11 at that time,
Mm.
and that's the time when I said that okay, and I told my dad that I need to go to England to study
Mm.
so that I can train with Malcolm Millstrop. He trained at this place called Pontefract.
Mm.
I didn't even know a town called Pontefract existed.
Mm.
I didn't even know where it was. I was just like, Dad, I know he trained in this place called Pontefract. This is where we have to go.
Okay. Mm.
And then we started looking into it and things like that. And I actually applied to England. You apply through UCAS, and I got like 5 universities that you can apply to.
Mm.
And my dream university all along, this is even before squash took center stage and
Mm.
stuff, because I was doing economics, was the London School of Economics.
Mm.
That's where I wanted to go.
Mm.
So I applied there as well. And then my father and me went on this recce trip. We put London as a last stop because we could fly out of London and come back. We went to a few universities, and then we went to Leeds. And it happened that Pontefract was the closest to Leeds.
Okay.
So we were there for like 3-4 days, and we went there, and it was again very weird because there's this famous thing where there are two courts, and there's like he's perched on top,
Mm-hmm.
where he like is commenting on everything that you do,
Ah.
and and he's basically commenting while you play, and he's commenting in like a very deep Yorkshire accent, which at the best of times, at that point I'm not really used to it. The best of times you don't understand,
Yes.
and he's talking whilst you're hitting shots. So in terms of respect, I'm like, okay, I should stop and listen to him. and B, I can't understand anything if I'm actually playing and he's talking. So every time I stopped, he's like, "Why are you stopping?" I'm like, "Well, you were talking." He's like, "No, don't stop. You're meant to be bright. Keep playing, keep listening, but keep playing." So that was like my first introduction to him. And then we sat down at the end of the 4 days, and he basically told my dad that, he would love to have me, thankfully. But he said that, if he really wants to kind of train with me on a consistent basis, then Leeds is the most
Place to
probable
be.
place, because that's the closest. It's like a 20-25 minute drive, and that's where he needs to be. London, unfortunately, is too far because it's like a train, whatever. So I remember literally after that meeting, my dad and me were driving back to Leeds where we were staying. And it was like a 20-minute drive. That 20-minute drive, I told my dad, "Dad, we're going to go to London, but we're not going to go to London school." He's like, "What do you mean we're not going to go?" I'm like, "No, because if I go there, I'm going to be tempted to go there. But I know that this is where I need to go to be able to train with Malcolm." So that's how Malcolm happened. And I ended up actually being, and this again, I only found out later, I was his first ever international player that he coached
Coached.
on a regular basis. Like there
Okay.
used to be people who used to come for like, 1 week or 2 weeks and things like that. But I was the first one who he did where I was there all the time as a permanent fixture.
Okay.
And through the years, he became, in a lot of ways, more than just a squash coach. He was someone that, I could speak to about pretty much anything. He was, I wouldn't say a father figure because he was a lot older than my dad. And after a while, he literally didn't charge me anything. Like, he was like, "No, like, I can't charge you. Like, I don't charge James. I'm not charging you. I'm just happy that you're here." And I think he's one of those people for whom, like, if he asked me to jump off a cliff, I wouldn't question him. I would just jump off a cliff. That's the amount of trust that I had in him, and he's someone that I will always be indebted to for what I have become as a player. In terms of, there's so much that he taught me, but I think the one thing that, you know when I look back, I always think that I really, really learned was before I went, like any player, you have days when you play really well, whether it be in practice or a match, and you have days when you just don't play well,
Right.
right? And before I went to him, I actually didn't know why that was happening, right? I just knew that if you asked me that why did you play well today, I would have just said, "Oh, my shots just came in today," and that's what normal people would just say. But when I went to him, that's when I really started to understand that, especially the days when I'm not playing well, why is this not happening? Why is it not clicking? Right? It could be that, I'm not moving properly. It could be that I'm not making the right choices of shots. Could be that I'm really tense. Whatever it was, right? I'm not putting the ball in the right place, right? That kind of gave me an understanding of how I could problem solve during a match to be better even on the days when I'm not playing well, right? And that was very important. And I think that is, they keep saying the best players in the world win on days when they don't play well, right? This is what that means.
So interesting. So after that, did you go through some other training as well in your professional career?
Yeah, so I mean, so I was with him, and I trained with him till he passed away in 21. But 2018 Commonwealth Games, where I lost first round, um, I just, like, that was the time. I think that's the closest I've probably been to saying that, yeah, I'm done. I'm probably reached whatever I can, and I can't do anything more, and I'm done. And literally for like, I think after those games for like a month or month and a half, I didn't train. I just went away. I was like, I need to just go away from this and see what else is there in life for me. But at the same time, I was thinking, that maybe I can do something else and whatever. And one of my friends, who is a former world number one and world champion, Mohammad El Shorbagi from Egypt, he was training with this person called David Palmer, who's also a former world number one and world champion. And I've actually played with him when he was playing. And I remember calling him up one day and saying that, "Mo, I'm thinking, obviously I'm with Malcolm and I'm still going to be with him, but maybe I should try something new. And do you think David would be a good fit for me?" and he was like, I think it'll be great because I think you need a little bit more intensity, and David brings with him a lot of intensity, and I think he's very good tactically as well. So give it a shot. And called up David, and Mo and me actually joke with David quite a few times, saying that, when he used to play, we used to think he was the most Khadoos guy ever. Like literally wouldn't talk to anyone, be like totally unapproachable and blah blah. But actually he's the nicest guy ever.
Oh, okay.
so but anyway, so David Palmer happened in the summer of 2018.
Okay.
And I'm still with him. We did a lot of the stuff that I did with Malcolm. We just tried to do it at a higher intensity, and having the complement of both the places. And it's, again, something very good from both people. Like they had no ego on both their sides. Both
Okay.
Malcolm and David were like, yeah, we are here to help you as a player. It just so happened that I was able to create this really good team around me to make that work for me. So I think David Palmer happening in 2018 was great, and that loss in the Commonwealth Games was the catalyst to that move. And I think bringing him on board was one of the major factors in me kind of making top 10 in the world in 2019, because I don't think if he wasn't on board with me, I would have been able to do it at that point in time. So in terms of the squash coaches, I think those two have had the biggest kind of impact. I think one more name that I have to kind of put in is my physical trainer, Damon Leedale Brown. I've been working with him since 2013. Everyone keeps kind of talking about, how physically good I am, and, that I'm 38 years old, but I'm still doing what I'm doing. It's because of him. This guy, he's so good at making sure that not only that I'm firing on all cylinders physically, but also keeping in mind that I can fire for a really, really long time. It's not about short-term gains. It's about making sure that in the long term, I'm not killing my body, where it's just going to break down and I can't come back anymore. And I think that is something that a lot of people need to understand. But his contribution is priceless, and I wouldn't be able to play the way I play, because a lot of my game is based around my speed and my physicality, if it wasn't for him. So I'm super thankful that I have these people who have helped me along the way.
Interesting. So let's talk about a few of the major international games that you've been to. 2014 Asian Games. You, of course, won the medal over there. But any specific match that stands out, etched in your memory?
I mean, I think the individual final. I still don't have the gold medal in the individuals. I was playing Abdullah Muzain from Kuwait, who is probably one of the most talented players that I've seen live, and great guy, great friend as well. I was 2-love up, playing really well. He looked down and out. Went kind of for broke a little bit in the third, kind of got everything in, won that. Fourth was tight, as far as I remember. I think I had match ball in the fourth, couldn't convert, and then I ended up losing the fifth. It's obviously I sleep all right now, but that took a while to kind of get over. And it was difficult at the time, but it's one of those matches where you felt like neither of us deserved to lose. But unfortunately, in sports, someone has to win and someone has to lose. And unfortunately for me, it turned out that I ended up on the losing side. But it is a match that I will always remember. Uh, Maybe not as fondly if I had won it, but I think it's a special match, which I was a part of. I think it was very, very high quality, and I think both of us produced some very, very good stuff in that match, and I'll always remember that. And I think moving, you know. I lost that, and then we had the team event after that, in which we won actually our first ever team gold. Like we had never won a gold in the team event ever, and I won, against Malaysia in the final, 3-2,
Decider.
where I was basically like, running on fumes, because I'm playing every day, and I was running on fumes, and I lost the fourth. I was 2-1 up, and I lost the fourth after being match ball.
Uh-huh.
So it was 2-all. So in my mind, I'm thinking, man, this is like a repeat now. I wasn't 2-love up, but you're still match ball. And coming out in between the fourth and the fifth, I remember, Harinder Singh, my best friend. He was on the team as well, and he looked at me and he's like, "Sort of, just one game, man. Just do anything, just one game." And I looked at him. I'm like, "Harry, man, I have literally nothing left in the tank here. Like physically, I'm just done." And that's one game I think in my entire life and in my entire career where I pretty much played every single point on emotion. No physicality, just emotion. After every single point, I was kind of like looking out, which I don't normally do. I was looking out at my entire team sitting, and I was like, okay, one more point just for these guys. And it worked out. I won 11-9 in the fifth, and we won that. And I think that was huge for me, and huge for the team, and huge for Indian squash. And it was almost like a redemption of sorts. 4 or 5 days after I had kind of lost that, and I sometimes I think you can't have it all. So that was like God's way of saying that you couldn't have that, but you can have this. So yeah.
But it was after these Asian Games that you actually set a goal for yourself, saying you want to get into the top 10 in the world. And 5 years later, you got it in 2019. So, what were those 5 years like? What gave you that drive and as well as that conviction that you can get there?
So I think 2014 is when I was like, okay, I want to meet top 10 because I had been top 20 for a while by then. But I think the actual real belief and conviction that I was there and I deserved to be there happened when I went to David in the summer of 2018. I think up to that point, I was knocking on the door, but I don't think I could break the door down open. It was not entirely in my control, I felt. It was based on people ahead of me. If they kind of had a little bit of a bad season, then I would kind of get in, kind of thing. But after I went to David, I just felt that, you know what, if I produce what I can produce, I should be top 10. Like, I'm selling myself short if I'm not. Um, Obviously, a lot of work went into it. I think something that changed as well when I went to David was tactically for matches, we prepared more. And the realization came that at the very, very top, it's not just good enough to be very good. It's about not about it's actually the key to winning is being able to impose the way you play and your identity as a player on the other person. So a good way to look at it is that every single person in the top 10 plays a different way. The person who wins on that day is the person who can make the other person
Wins the
play the
game.
way he plays, because everyone in the top 10 believes wholeheartedly that the way they play, they're the best in the world at that. Right? And so today, if Ali Farag from Egypt is the world number one, is because he is able to impose the way he plays on all of us more consistently than what we are able to do on him. Right? And I think to do that, you have to be tactically very good. You have to figure out how to be able to impose that game on the other person and respond to what the other person is going to throw at you and adapt accordingly, because it's a game of response.
Right.
It's not like shooting or swimming or running where you're just doing it yourself. Of course, there are other things you have to deal with, but there you're a major part of your performance is focusing just on yourself. Whereas in a sport like squash, you're focusing on yourself, but at the same time, you have to kind of find cues in terms of what the other person is doing and create patterns of play, which is going to make it difficult for the other person. So I think tactically being more astute really helped me. And executing that consistently kind of got me to top 10 in the world when I made it in 2019.
But then 2018, the Commonwealth Games, that, as you mentioned, it turned out to be a little bit of a dampener for you. You spent almost a month meeting different people, trying to learn what went wrong. So, has squash taught you this as well, that, when you have a setback, how do you use that as an opportunity to learn and improve?
So I would like to say that, like learning and improving is not just when you lose
Okay.
or not just when you have a setback. I think the best players in the world learn when they win as well, right? When you win, it's not like everything has gone perfectly, right? There are still things to learn when you've won, right? And I think if you manage to learn not just in matches but also in training, that is how you're going to grow and evolve as a player. And time waits for no one. Game and life in general always keeps evolving and always keeps moving forward. So even if you maintain your level of play, after a certain point in time, you're going to go back, right? You're going to kind of be passed by someone else. So you have to constantly learn. There's one of these interviews, that Kobe Bryant actually gave once. And, everyone keeps talking about his Mamba mentality and things like that. And something that really, really like struck me was they asked him that, um, what is it? Is there any doubt in your mind, when you're stepping onto a basketball court, whether you're going to win or you're going to lose? And he says, what's the doubt for? If you win, you're still going to go back out the next day and train. If you lose, you're still going to go out there the next day and train. The only thing that changes is you're going to learn different things when you win and when you lose. So there is no doubt. The doubt does not exist. You just focus on preparing every day, and then you go in to play. I think that is, as I've grown into my career, I think I've kind of felt that, every time I go on, that's the way I feel, that, I've prepared as best I can. It is a great opportunity for me to kind of make all the work that I've put in worthwhile, because the work is brutal. Right? There are sessions when I'm doing the session, I'm thinking like, are you mad? Like, what are you doing? Like, people will think you're insane, right? But when you finish the sessions, you feel great. But then, if you're not going to use all that work that you put in and actually play matches, then why are you putting it in? Right? There has to be something. There has to be a tangible kind of benefit to putting all that thing in, right? So being able to play matches, tournaments, the biggest matches is something that I really look forward to. So, like, small example, at team events, for example, people get very stressed if they're playing the decider, right? They're like, man, if I play the decider, it's all on me.
Yeah.
Suppose I lose, blah blah. But it's very weird. But like, ever since I remember, every time I played a team event, I have always wanted to play the decider. And I really enjoy those kind of situations, because it's like, yeah, man, this is my time to shine. This is, what I've put all the
To
work
make
in.
it happen.
This is my opportunity. So, I always look forward to, saying that, yeah, I have this, and so there is no like, doubt and pressure. What is the pressure for? The pressure is a privilege. You're in this position. That's why the pressure is there. You're in this position because you have precedent in terms of being good enough to be able to do this. If you
Yes.
weren't, then you wouldn't be in this position.
Right.
Right. So, and the more you do it, the more privilege you get. Right. So, I think I've always been a person where, I've wanted to learn as much as I can and be better than what I am yesterday, and be the best version of myself, and kind of feel, I know deep down that attaining perfection is impossible in a lot of ways, but I want to be on that quest, on that journey to attain perfection in some ways, right? And I think that journey is what gives me the joy of doing it for so long. Because I feel that in that time and space where I'm in this quest to attain that perfection is the time where I'm the happiest, and I wouldn't trade that time for anything else. And it gives me the most peace and contentment and satisfaction and any other adjectives you want to use, which kind of relate to that. So learning and trying to be better every day, whether it be after a win or a loss, is immaterial. Of course, straight after a loss, it's very raw and it hurts like a knife through your heart. But once the dust settles, you realize that you go back to, again, just actually doing the same thing. You literally, it doesn't matter. Those are just momentary, like, flashes in the pan. Wins are great fireworks, and losses are like massive dampeners, but they don't last forever. They last for fleeting moments. They're almost like gushes of wind which come and like shake you, and then they leave. But for the foundations to stay, you have to kind of keep doing it all the time.
Yes, but I think what lasts in some ways is the glory. Like, the 2022 Commonwealth Games, you got the first ever, individual squash medal for India in a Commonwealth game. Uh, so you made history and you get the glory. How do you handle that glory?
So I think it lies in what you just said. What lasts is the glory, but that is, you have to make sure that it is external and it is not internal, right? So whatever I have achieved, and I'm very mindful of this, that at least till the point I finish, like finish fully, I am. I never think about anything that I have made history, done this, done that, all of that. This is almost for the outside world to enjoy. For me, it is internally a kind of validation in a lot of ways of all the work that I've put in, and enjoyment in retrospect, in memories of the performance that I've put in. And just feeling happy about that, but not kind of buying into that, yeah, I have made history and I've done this and I've done that, right? Because I feel like if I get caught up in all of that, my search for that perfection is going to dwindle. And if that happens, then my passion and desire will slowly kind of ebb away. And if that happens, I wouldn't be as good a player that I possibly can be. And I think when I do finish, if that kind of process happens, I will feel the most regret, because I wouldn't have been able to say that I did everything possible to be the best player I could have been. I've done whatever I've done, but it's not for me to kind of look at it and say that, oh, I'm this or I'm that, or I've done this or done that. It's for everyone else to kind of see that and hopefully gain inspiration from it in some ways, and be better themselves. And I think that is the biggest kind of contribution that I can make at this point in time.
Because it's so interesting you say that, because the issue is that once you achieve a goal, and you may or may not want to say it, but you make history, after that, what drives you to keep improving and keep going,
Yeah,
that drive.
because I mean, it's like one of my sporting heroes is Usain Bolt, right? He's the only one who's ever won the 100 and 200 3 Olympics in a row. If winning an Olympic medal or winning the Olympic gold was the be all and end all, he's
He
not
would
winning
have,
the second one. He's
yeah.
definitely not winning the third one, right? So, what is it that is driving him? What is driving him is to just run faster. Right? Take one of our own, Neeraj Chopra, right? Great guy, right? He won Olympic gold in 2022, in 20, sorry,
Yeah.
2020 in Japan, won silver now, right? If winning the Olympic gold was the only thing, he
He
might
wouldn't
not
go
be winning
again.
again, right?
Yeah.
He would
He
fall
wouldn't go
by the
again.
wayside, right? Because it's a tough life out there,
Yeah.
right? But what is his kind of like end game,
Drive.
right? His end game is, मैं कितना दूर फेंक सकता हूँ. That is what he's looking at. Now, he's obviously trying to break the 90-meter barrier, right? So he's trying to see, can I break 90? Can I get close to 100? And in that process, if I'm winning the medal, then great, right? And that is what is going to win you the medal. So
Yes.
he is focusing on what is it that is making him win that
Win
medal,
the medal.
right? So the same way for me, like, yes, of course, I want to be world number one, right? And I want to be world champion, and I want to be, okay, take the Olympics in LA 28. I want to win Olympic gold. But I'm not going to just win Olympic gold like that, right? I have to be a better player to be able to win Olympic gold. And my focus is on that. You have to focus on the process and the systems to be able to make you a better player, in my case, every single day, to achieve great things. And I'm also a firm believer that you don't achieve great things once. If you achieve it once, it's good, but it's not great. The greatest of the great do it multiple times. When you back up what you have done, that is when you get to great territory, right? So you have to keep doing it consistently to be able to be so-called great.
So, did you internalize this, when you were very young? Because as we are saying, it's one is the entire training for the game, the physical fitness, all that, and the other is the mental fitness, your drive and your continuous drive. Uh, did you realize very early in childhood that that's one major thing required for success in sport?
So I think I realized this when I moved to Chennai, or just before. I think that was one of the reasons why I moved as well. So till I moved to Chennai, I never had any formal training. I used to literally go to the Calcutta Rackets Club where I started. Incidentally, it's the second oldest squash club in the world, where I used to basically just go play with like club members for like 2 hours a day.
Okay.
And that was the extent of my training.
Right.
I used to not do any physical training, zero, nothing. In a lot of ways, I was lazy. No two ways about it. But I lost a lot of matches because I just got tired. Right? I used to go 2-1 up and I was just done. And after that, I just, I just felt that I can lose matches because someone has played better than me. But being physically tired or not is in my control. Right? There are a lot of things which are not in my control, but this is in my control. So I shouldn't be losing matches for reasons which are in my control.
Right.
And I think that's when I realized that, okay, I need to start working so that I don't lose matches like this. So I think losing all those matches kind of made me feel that, I needed to do this. I think that's the start of my journey where I started making those decisions myself and started making those choices and favoring those choices almost, that that I needed to put myself under the hammer in a lot of ways, feel the pain in the background so that I didn't lose matches like this. I accepted that I could still lose even after that. Like, someone could be a better squash player, do whatever, all of that. But I could not lose because I got tired. This is like unacceptable. So I think that's where it started, and obviously it has progressed in more nuanced ways as like my career has gone on. But I think that was like the flexion point in terms of actually working hard. And Chennai, for all those people who don't know, there was a lot of emphasis on like physicality and things like that, and they put a lot of work into me, and that really helped me become one of the top juniors, and I kind of needed that at that point in time in my life. I think if I didn't have that at that time, I wouldn't have had the physical base required to withstand the pressures and rigors of professional squash, and I think that was a good period for me in terms of that.
Because sometimes with a physical injury also comes a mental injury. I mean, you can have the best of treatment, the best of rehab, but how do you mentally recover from this fact that you'd be training for some major event and you were right there and you suffered a physical injury, and then you can't make for that event? So
I mean, it's tough. There's no two ways about it. Like a small kind of anecdote from my career, 2014 Asian Games, I lost the final, individual silver medal over there. 2018 Asian Games, I was primed to be one of the contenders again. Made the semifinals, everything was looking good. I go 2-love up, but in the second game, I did my hamstring. I knew it. I knew it straight away. I tried to push through, but it just went, and I ended up losing that 3-2. And the guy I lost to actually went on to win the gold the next day. And that almost makes it worse because you think that, man, I was winning and I could have won, and if I'd won, I would have won. All these things. This ifs, buts, or all that. It's difficult. It scars you, right? Because you suddenly feel that all the work you've put in, with all the positive things that I just said before about working through the journey and all of that, but in that moment, because it's so raw, you just feel that, oh, it was all for nothing, and all of that. So I think it's difficult to deal with at that point in time. It's difficult to have perspective. I think perspective is the most important thing. You get that after a little time. Sometimes it takes a couple of days, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, sometimes a month, whatever. Everyone has their time. You deal with that. But then again, coming back from an injury, again, it's not so clear cut as just the injury healing and physically you being all right. But it takes time, and that takes a toll mentally on you because you feel that, everything is fine now and I should be playing at least to the level that I was playing at before I kind of got injured, but then I'm not. And then you start getting frustrated, and it's like a vicious cycle. So again, coming back to the word patience, patience is important.
Okay.
Being compassionate to yourself and understanding that, what, it is going to take time. and you've done everything you can, which is in your control, and now you got to kind of let go a little bit and wait for things to happen a little bit. And there is a time and place for everything, and that time will come. Eventually, if you've put the work in and prepared well, it will come. You just have to be ready and wait for it to come.
So, talking of time will come, uh, once you became, got ranked in the world's top 10, obviously you set a target for breaking into the single digit ranking. But somehow that target eluded you, right? As luck would have it. I mean, five setters, maybe losing in the last game. So, how do you still keep that drive of going after a target that's eluded you, but you really desire it?
Because I really desire it.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. I think, obviously, again, when it's raw, it hurts because you're so close, like you said. But then you also realize that you are so close because you are that good. Right? If you weren't so that good, you wouldn't
You
be that
wouldn't be
close,
that
right?
close.
So there is something which you're doing right, and there is the level that you have, which is good enough to be there and to compete with the very best in the world, whether it be the world number one or the world number seven, whoever it is, right? You know that you're capable of doing this, and it's a question of making it turn your way at some point in time, right? And you keep going as long as you physically and mentally are able to push yourself, not just in matches but in training, right? If in training you start losing the drive and the hunger to get better, I think that's when you decide that this is it for me. So I think that's basically what kept me going. That's one goal which I still haven't achieved, but it'll always be there that I did everything that I can to get there, right? And I take a lot of satisfaction from that.
But as you said, that the hunger has to be not just in the matches; it has to be in the training as well,
Yeah.
because that's what the journey is actually.
Yeah. I mean, what you produce in matches
Yeah.
or in tournaments, and whether you win or lose, is 95% what you do in training. 5% is what the world sees, right? There's again, going back, one of my favorite sporting icons, Roger Federer. He gave this interview saying that everyone says that when they watch me play, it looks effortless, right? It's like it's almost an insult, which means that I've not really worked hard. I've actually worked really hard to make it look effortless, right? And that is the key. So I think you've got to kind of have that drive and hunger in training to be able to like really do what these people have done. And once you lose that, I think it's end game for you, for anyone, right? And it's time to move on to doing something else in life. It's not necessary that you can only do one thing in life,
Right.
but whatever you do, you have to have a daily kind of dose of inspiration coming from that action to kind of keep you going every day.
So I come from a squash enthusiast family, and we say that when we watch Saurav play, it's like watching poetry. The game is so rhythmic and so nice.
I mean, I try. I wish I could be more economical and efficient and make it look even nicer. And it's weird you say, because so many people have actually told me that.
Uh-huh.
But when I see myself play, and I'm like, what are these guys looking at? Like, are they seeing someone else play? But no, but I'm thankful. Like I really like, that's one of the things that gives me a lot of like happiness when people come to me and tell me that they enjoy watching me play, right? And then there are a few shots which they remember.
Right.
There's one shot which is under my legs which they remember, things like that, and I think those things stick with you
Yes.
a lot more.
Let's talk about squash in India. I mean, you were, fortunate enough to go through a lot of training, whether it was in Chennai and then whether it was further abroad and so on. But not everyone can afford that. So, what does India need to do to be able to actually produce many more, squash players and squash talent and nurture more squash talent in the country?
I think that's a loaded question. There's a lot that can be done and needs to be done and should be done. I think we've come a long way from when I started. So, credit where credit's due. we have to look at the positives as well. There are a lot more players playing today than when I started, which is great. There is always strength in numbers. So I think we are heading in the right direction. I think the upward graph could be a little steeper if we put certain things in place. I think in terms of infrastructure, we've come a long way. I think we have enough infrastructure around the country to produce better players. Of course, we can do more. We can, I think we can take it into smaller towns a little bit more. I think we're still uh, primarily an urban sport. I think the rural areas of India do not have access to squash courts, and there is a lot of talent in rural India. So giving them access would be a big impetus to the game. In terms of producing at the highest level, I think our biggest kind of obstacle, so to say, is that the quality of coaches that we have in India today are not good enough to produce people who can go on to make top 20, top 30 in the world. There are two types of coaches in the world who are brilliant, like two categories. One is ex-players who have been there, done that, and they know what it takes. So, like a David Palmer, or a coach who has produced a top player, like a Malcolm Willstrop. There are others also. I'm just giving two of the people that I've worked with. Unfortunately for us, we don't have anyone in India who fall into either category, right? No one has, before this generation, no one has made it and played at the highest level.
Right.
And because no one has played at the highest level, there is no coach who has produced anyone.
Yes.
So we don't have the necessary expertise to be able to tell kids that, this is how it is done. This is what we need to do to produce at the highest level. So I think we have to learn from outside, but not depend on outside for eternity, right? So to make it sustainable, the way I would do it would be to get a really good guy or guys or girls, whoever it is, from outside, make them work in India, but at the same time make the Indian coaches work with them on a daily basis so that they can learn on a daily basis. The other couple of things would be, even though the numbers have increased, I think we need to get into schools a little bit more to create even more numbers. India is blessed with numbers,
Yes.
right? And we need to leverage that. And there is no doubt that there is strength in numbers. I mean, if you have, let's say 1 lakh kids playing at the same time, there's more chance of you producing a world champion than if you have 10,000.
Yes.
It's as simple as this. Pure math. So I think doing that is really important. And I think finally, like just having this mindset as a squash playing nation that we don't want to settle to be competitive, that we want to win and we want to win big on the world stage. I think going back to our discussion about goals, right? As a country, we should be looking at how can we win the world team championships? How can we win Olympic gold? Like today, in squashes in the Olympics in LA 28, are there conversations being had where we are saying, how are we going to win gold in LA 28? I have not been part of any of these conversations, right? The conversations have been about how can we get into LA and qualify for LA, right? There's a difference. Now, if we kind of transport ourselves to an England or an Egypt, those conversations are going to be centered around how can we win it and how many medals can we win, right? That is the difference, right? If you are, they say aim for the stars and you'll kind of reach the moon, right? Here, we're not aiming for the stars. We are aiming for the moon and we'll probably make flight, right? Whereas England, Egypt, all these people, they are aiming for the stars and then they'll definitely land on the moon and they might reach the stars as well. So I think having that change of mindset as a collective is important. Again, I'm not saying the administration is only at fault. I think everyone, the administration, the kids, parents, any institutions involved in the game, everyone has to believe wholeheartedly that we want to win an Olympic gold. And how do we do it? And how do we work every single day now for the next 3.5 years to make it possible in July 28, where we come back with one Olympic gold, if not more, right? And I think that will make a big difference in terms of elevating the game. And I mean, as well as I do, nothing succeeds like success. If you win an Olympic gold, I mean, all these things that I'm talking about, will take care of itself on its own.
Yes.
Right? You're
Yes.
talking about schools. Government doesn't need to do anything. Schools itself is
Themselves
putting
will
squash
ask.
courts, and if
Yes.
they get an Olympic gold,
Yes.
right? So I think it's the responsibility of the players to push that envelope and try and win that. But at the same time, there's responsibilities on other stakeholders in the ecosystem to make that possible and to elevate the game, so to say, in the country altogether.
Yeah, I guess that's where the mindset is in a way different from other countries. Otherwise, if you see 80s and 90s, I mean, it was the Pakistani players who used to kind of be the
Yeah, yeah.
champions, the Jamshed Khans, the Jahangir Khans, and then
Yeah.
from the mid 2000s, it became the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Ali Farag, even today,
Yeah.
belongs to Egypt. The today's
Yeah.
world champion. The I think even in the top 10 in men, about 6 are from Egypt.
I mean, there are four. Two of them have changed nationality to England, so
Okay,
that's why
so that's
it's four.
why. Otherwise,
Yeah,
they've
but I'll
got.
tell you a very interesting story.
Hmm.
So Tariq Momin,
Hmm.
Egyptian guy,
Hmm.
he won the World Championships in Qatar,
Okay.
and I shared a room with him well, not the next week, but a week after in England. We were playing another tournament in England, and I shared a room with him. And we go back a long way, so we know each other really well. And I was like, Tariq, man, I know I was there and I wished you and all, but I'm sure, this has been like your lifelong dream and everything. And I'm so happy for you. Well done. You had a great event in Qatar. Brilliant. She's like, thanks a lot, blah, blah. So I was like, man, now you must be an absolute superstar in Egypt. So she was like, man, should I tell you something? I'm like, yeah, sure. So at that time, Ali was world number one.
Yes.
Mohammed Al Shorbagi was world number two. He was Egyptian at that point. Now he's English. And Tariq was three in the world. He said, I won the world championships, but I'm still number three in Egypt. So no one gives a damn. So now I'm working to become world number one. Right? So when he told me that, I'm like, imagine this guy has won the world championships 1 week back.
Yes.
Right? And he is not satisfied fully, even though this was his lifelong dream. Being world number one wasn't. Some people have world number one and some people have world champion.
That's it.
His thing was world champion.
Champion.
So he's really happy that he made world champion, but he's not settling. Right? He wants to make world number one so that he can be Egyptian number one. Right? So I think that is what drives that country. Right? Because everyone is looking at everyone around them and saying, man, if I don't do this, I'm no good.
Yes.
Like no one is going to care.
Yes.
Right? Whereas, let's say in India, right? In a lot of ways, we are celebrating mediocrity.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying don't encourage, right? But don't encourage to a point where mediocrity becomes the gold standard. It is not. Right? Yes, it's great when you do X, Y, Z, but it is not the zenith.
Yeah.
Right? And even if it is the zenith, right, it is not the end of the road. So, coming back to when you were saying, when I said that I want to sit back at the end of it all, you celebrate to that level at the end of it all, not now. So, in a way, like Neeraj, for example, he's not in India for the most part. So, he's immune to a lot of the celebration of what he is. He's probably one of the greatest athletes India has produced. I mean, definitely in athletics, he's the greatest, right? But he's immune to it because he's not here. So he's in this own self-built bubble and cocoon where he's not getting infiltrated with this mindset that, yeah, you've done everything. So that's why his aim is still कि मैं कितना दूर फेंक सकता हूँ, right? And that is really important, because if you don't have that as an individual and as a collective, then it's very difficult to produce at really high levels. The only sport where I feel we do have it is in cricket, because we feel like we should win everything, right? Even if we make the final, it's not good enough, right? So if we have that, I mean, some of it is like over the top. Like you have to have balance in your views. The team doesn't become useless overnight. They win one day, they're gods, and the next day, that's a bit over the top.
Yes.
But the expectation is that they should win, right? And if they don't win, why didn't they win, right? Whereas I feel like for other sports in general, maybe because we haven't had the precedent of being world champions,
that level.
I feel like we end up celebrating kind of achievements which are good, but not at the level at what we can aspire to, and we actually have the potential to.
So we need to get into that virtuous circle where we actually go towards the zenith
Yeah.
and not towards
Yeah.
mediocrity.
Yeah, because I think, everyone is looking at us, right? And all the kids are looking at what is being celebrated, what is happening, what is not happening. And if you start celebrating mediocrity, then everyone is going to say, "Ha, mujhe to wahi karna hai. That is all I need to do." I'm not saying don't encourage. You have to support. You have to encourage all of that, but don't kind of put them on such a pedestal too early in life and too early in their trajectory of achievement that very few find the mental kind of capacity to extrapolate themselves from it and still
And
go.
want to go beyond.
Yeah.
But you spoke about Olympics, and so finally, squash has been included in Olympics, and it's going to make its debut in the 2028 Olympics. But what what do you think? Took so long for squash to be included, and what did finally click in spite of all the setbacks in the past?
I mean, I think everyone in the squash world would love to know why it took so long. We don't know, to be honest. The International Olympic Committee has its own set of kind of processes, and for whatever reason, over the last 20 years, where we've really proactively tried to get in,
Huh.
we haven't made it. We've come close a few times, but we haven't crossed the line. This time, and funnily enough, it happened at the IOC session in Mumbai last year. We got in, which is probably the most significant day in the history of the game, I would say, in a lot of ways. So everyone is elated and ecstatic about it. I think as a sport, we have everything that should be there as an Olympic sport. We tick all the right boxes. I think as athletes, we are one of the best athletes in the world, and we believe that we deserve the platform of the biggest sporting event in the world, which is the Olympics, to showcase that. So I think it's a great opportunity for our sport to showcase to the world, what a lovely and great sport it is, and what a hard sport it is. And the physicality that goes with it is brilliant. So I think we're very happy that we made it. In terms of what went for us specifically this time, I think to begin with, the LA organizing committee was very open to a lot of new sports, and really looking at what kind of brought value in terms of the games, so to say, and they found great value in what squash has done over the last 5 to 10 years. I think our the strides that we've made in broadcasting, especially, really kind of helped a lot. In terms of there was always this gripe about the ball not being able to be seen very well on television and things like that, and I think that has been solved to a great kind of extent with the new broadcasting technology and things like that, and that was good. And I think the organizing committee came to a few events. They kind of also realized that it's actually a very inexpensive sport infrastructurally to put up at the Olympic Games, compared to some of the other sports in terms of area, things like that, and in terms of the environment and atmosphere of the intimacy of the sport. I think kind of lent itself well to it. And then I think the players did the rest. I think they were brilliant with the performances that they produced and the drama that they produced in matches, and the quality both on the men's and the women's side. And I think that's another important point. We as a sport are kind of one of the pioneers almost in terms of having equal prize money, equality and opportunity for men and women. And I think that was something that the Olympic Games really looked very favorably on. And that really helped. So we did all the things there, and I really hope that LA 28 goes really well. And the decision for Brisbane 32 is in 2027, which is before the LA Olympic Games, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we stay in, which will be the second most important day if that happens for squash moving forward.
So staying in 2032 is not automatic.
No, it's not automatic.
Okay.
Because from what I understand, I think you need to be in 3 Olympic games in a row to be automatic. So we've obviously only made one. So we'll have to do the whole process again for 32. If we make it to 2,
Then
the chances are mostly that we will make it to the third one and then become an automatic. So the second one is the next flexion point for us.
Okay. And how do you think this inclusion in Olympics will change squash globally?
I think there's already been a lot of change, and you can see it. Governments are getting involved a lot more intensively. People are looking at squash as a more kind of more tangible kind of benefit from the game in terms of being an Olympic medalist and an Olympic hopeful. I think the Olympics just adds, another level of I don't know what the word is exactly, but it just creates a different aura for a sport. And being an Olympic sport, the pride of being in the Olympics and being an Olympian, I think it gives the general masses also something more tangible to kind of hold on to.
Okay.
And I think that is really helping. Obviously, we just finished with the Olympics last year, but I think the seeds are being sown already where, you know, squash is getting a little bit more traction in terms of funding and things like that all around the world. And I think over the next couple of years, we will really see a lot more happening, both on the public and private front around the world. But I think especially in India as well, where there's going to be a big push to really take squash to the next level. And if we get into 32, then it kind of just cements it a lot more. So for our selfish sake, I really hope we do get it.
But while you say all this, Djokovic made a very bold statement recently. He said that the tennis clubs are now endangered by the new age sports like pickleball and padel. Uh, do you think the traditional racket sports like squash are also at risk? I mean, any young player I see now, even if he's been a squash player, is going to play padel and pickleball?
I think they're great games in their own right. I actually do think, and I think the operative word where Novak actually said was that the clubs are endangered. I think as a recreational sport,
Okay.
yes, I think
Okay.
it is a danger. They will definitely encroach on the numbers for all the racket sports, all the traditional racket sports. But I do think and I believe that competitively, I think they will still hold their place in the world of sport. It is up to you know the different stakeholders in the traditional sports to find ways to get the recreational game robust again, and kind of try and coexist with these new age sports as much as possible. It's not easy because they've obviously found hybrid models of the traditional sports to make these sports which make it more enticing on a recreational level. So it's a hard nut to crack, but hopefully they can, because the recreational side of things is an important component of any sport.
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
that creates your following, so to say,
Yes.
and you can't just neglect it. So it's an ongoing process at every level. I can assure you that, and we're trying our best to see what we can do with it.
Oh, good. So you announced your retirement at the age of 38, but then you decided to play again for a couple of more years. So why that change in heart? I mean, is there something you still desire to achieve after achieving so much?
So the reason why I stopped was not because I lost the desire to compete or lost the desire to train every day. It was basically, being on the professional tour, you're basically living out of a suitcase for like 40 weeks a year, something like that, when you go training abroad, tournaments, all of that, like that. And I just felt that, like traveling around for all that time every year had kind of taken its toll. But I still wanted to play for India. I still wanted to kind of, do things for India and hopefully achieve something more, because I felt I still had some left in me. So I kind of went away from the game. I announced it in April, but I knew in end of Feb that that's what I was going to do. I announced it in April, and I went away. I didn't really train much at all. Took like 4-5 months out, did things. Went on holiday for like 1.5 months, which I've never done in my life, I think. Things like that. And in that time, I was still thinking about it, how I want to kind of, still play for India. What do I want to do? Will my body still function and respond the way I need it to? So many different variables in play. So I started training again in August of last year. First to see, whether the body functions, then to see if it responds. I went back to David Palmer end of September and to my physical trainer. He's in Philadelphia. So went back there, and 2.5 weeks I was there, and the body responded.
Okay.
So you're like, okay, this piece is done now. Now we need to kind of sit down and plan how we want to, achieve the goals that we want to achieve, right? And I have some goals in my mind, and we just felt that if I wanted to play for India and if I wanted to do it really well, then it just seemed that my best chance of doing that and winning medals for India and producing my highest level was that I needed to play some sort of PSA again.
Okay.
Because if I didn't play PSA, then it would just be that the body would just have a shock to the system every time I played. Let's say I played Ali Farag at the World Team Championships. I mean, I'm not playing anyone at that level if I'm not playing PSA, right? So it's just going to be a shock to the system. So no matter how good you are, you're not going to be able to deal with it. So, we've come to the conclusion that, okay, I need to play PSA, but I also know, because obviously LA 28 is at the back of my mind, and that is probably my end point if I can get there. The 3.5 years of playing PSA the way I've played for 20 years is not going to happen. Like, I won't be able to do it. So we've decided we're going to go through in phases.
Okay.
We're going to take it slow to begin with,
Okay.
then push it for a little while, then slow again, and then push it for a little while, kind of trying to match it, so to say, with what I really want to achieve in terms of the Asian Games next year and the Olympics. Those are the two big ones for me, to see if we can kind of do it properly that way and put myself in the best possible position, both in terms of ranking as well as in terms of level and play, to have a realistic shot of winning something for India. So it's a it's an experiment. But if I don't try it now, when will I? And I feel like if I don't try it, then I might wake up in July 28 and say, man, why didn't I try
Why
it?
was I not
So
there?
at least I'm giving it a shot, and hopefully it'll work out. And maybe I'll meet you in July 28 and we'll have a celebratory
Of course, of
meal
course.
if everything goes well.
Back
So
on this show as well.
yes,
Yes,
hopefully.
yes.
Yes.
But retirement definitely can be a challenge for athletes because their entire identity is built around that sport. So it can definitely be a challenge. How are you planning for your life after retirement? Or given everything that you said, that's a little while away. So let's not plan about it just now.
No, I am planning. I think, for me, the piece which I'm almost scared about is, I alluded to it earlier, is that, the high that I get from competing on the biggest stages in the world, I almost know that I will not be able to replicate it. But yeah, I think you have to kind of plan so you can transition well, because otherwise it's a very painful process. I'm putting things in place. I've started a few developmental grassroots level academies in India under the Saurav Ghosal squash name. The whole ethos of that is coaching the coaches. Like I said, I want to create an infrastructure and a system where the coaches are educated on how to produce players at the highest level. And one of the main things I keep telling all of them is that don't worry about the short term. We are not worried about whether a kid is winning an under 11 junior nationals or not. Right? I didn't win a junior nationals till I was 15. I made 3 finals, but I didn't win. Right? There's some of the best players in the world. Some people in the top 10 literally did not win a junior tournament when they were until like under 19 also.
Okay.
Right? But they're top 10 in the world. So everyone has that time in place. But the important thing is you put the right building blocks in place so that they can progress further quicker when they get older. So I feel like having that long-term view is very important. And for that, putting the right building blocks in terms of how to play the game, what to do technically, as well as in terms of decision making, I think that is really important, and that comes from the coaches who interact with the kids on a daily basis. So I'm trying really hard to put that in place through this coach to coaches program, so that they will be able to do that. But at this point in time, it's more developmental grassroots level centers because I want to start young. But I do have hopes that I can do one high performance center for slightly older kids with a slightly higher level of expertise. But that's sometime in the future. So hopefully
So
it'll
where
happen.
are these centers that you've opened?
So right now they are in New Bombay. There are 2 of them in New Bombay. There's going to be one opening very soon in Pune. And we're trying to expand slowly because I don't want to kind of just scale it without the template being kind of tried and tested to a certain extent, because we only started in October. So we have kind of a like an expansion plan in place, because we do know that we have to do pan India to really like seep through the system and really make a difference. But it is a kind of like a step by step plan to go through different regions in the country. But I do think over the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a significant increase in the number of centers that we enter into, and hopefully they will make a difference moving forward.
Yeah, but as you said, coach the coaches is so important. As we say in business, train the trainer.
Yeah.
Because when you train the trainer, you're creating such a huge multiplier effect. You train
Yeah.
one trainer,
Yeah.
that trainer is going to positively impact so many more players. So I would,
100%. That's the main thing, and I feel like so many people are so close with all the information that they have, right?
yes.
And one of the common things that people have asked me that you're coaching this coach, but suppose he leaves you and goes somewhere else. I'm like,
It's
okay,
okay.
it's
He's
fine.
still going to be
It's fi-
good for the game. Yeah.
yeah, it's fine, right? And if they can get the satisfaction from their job working in Saurav Ghosal squash, that's great. If they find something else which is, giving them, whether it's getting paid more or giving them better satisfaction, they're going to still impact some other kids somewhere. At the end
Yes.
of the day, my goal and the reason why I'm doing it in India is because I want to produce kids from India doing well at the world level. So whether it comes from directly from my kind of centers or from anywhere else in the country, I'll be the happiest person. And if I've had even a small kind of contribution to that, even indirectly, that's great. I mean, that's like job done. So hopefully it'll happen.
So this game, squash, has given you so much, your happiness, your joy as you speak about it, and it's visible in your eyes as you speak about it, your happiness, your success, your life lessons. It's almost made you the person you are. So these academies, these centers that you've set up, is this one of your ways of giving back to the game?
100%. Like it's like you said, it's given me everything. And I almost feel it incumbent on me and obligated to do something, right? And we, this generation of ours, with me, Deepika, Joshna, there is no doubt that this is our golden generation for Indian squash. Like we've done what we've done and we've taken it to another level. We've
Yes.
pushed the envelope. We've made Indian squash highly competitive at the world stage. The next step, like I said, is to win on the world stage and win big, right? And it would pain me to no end if after this generation it just falls off a cliff, right? And I feel if I can do something to continue that trajectory and make India a powerhouse, and if I have it in me to do it, then it would be wrong on me almost not to do
Not to do
something.
it.
And I'm not saying that I am the only answer. There are other people who could do different things and they must do it. But I feel like I should try. Because if I don't try, then I can't do anything. So I'm trying. There is no guarantee that I will succeed. But hopefully, like in anything in life, if I try well enough and hard enough, something will come off it. So I hope it does.
I'm sure. I'm sure. You're also now guiding, one of India's most promising player, Anahad Singh, at such a young age, and of course with the Olympics on the horizon. So, how does that part of your life and your experience feel? Because a time when you have been chasing certain goals, and now you're also mentoring people to aspire for that and try to reach those goals.
It's been great, to be honest. It's given me a lot of satisfaction. I think she's a great girl. I think she has a lot of potential. Of course, there are things that she can be better at, but it's been a process where I'm trying to think about all the things that I did in the past, things which went right, things which I feel in retrospect I shouldn't have done and could have done differently. And I'm trying to give her that wisdom, so to say, so that she does things better. Right? That's the whole point of it. And in a lot of ways, it's been a two-way learning process. Like, obviously, I would like to think that she's learned something from me, but I've also learned things from her. Like, when you play for so long, for example, sometimes you forget the basic joy of just playing,
Uh-huh.
right? And when I look at her, I remember that, right? And it's great, right? So I think that's something which will always hold her in good stead, because she genuinely enjoys playing. That's, you can see it. The moment she gets onto court, she loves it, right?
Okay.
So that's really good. And I think we are just I'm one component in her entire kind of system. She has a very, very good kind of team around her now, and I think she's great. I think she's definitely uh, the next big thing, so to say, India has. She has an immense amount of potential. I definitely believe she has the ability to make top 10 in the world and go higher. But at the same time, I don't want to put any pressure on her. And give the best you have, and then let the world take care of itself. So hopefully, she will do well. And yeah, the LA 28 games is obviously there, and it is a goal. It might be a bit too soon to expect her to be a medal prospect, but we're certainly looking at getting her to qualify for it. Um, Medal prospect, like I said, might be a bit too soon, because not impossible, but at this point in time, it's realistically, you don't want to say that, yeah, and then just for the sake of it. I think if we get into 32, 32 definitely
Definitely.
would definitely be a big, big goal. Asian Games next year for sure. Medal prospect, she's definitely in with a shot. Not easy, because it's a very strong field, but she'll be there or thereabouts. At least that's the plan. So yeah.
Saurav, you've accomplished so much in your career. But looking back at the different stages of your journey, how has your definition of success evolved over these stages? And today, at this point in your life, what does success mean to you?
I think when I was young, like pretty much everyone, when you're playing a sport is very black and white. You either win or you lose. There is no gray area where, there is subjectivity involved with that. It was always just about, success was about, did I win today? And that was success. I think over the last 30 years of playing squash, I think that has changed dramatically. I think for me, success is not actually the final outcome in a lot of ways. It is what I've done in the build up to that outcome. So, in terms of the training that I did, the time that I put in, uh, whether I win or lose, when I look back at the preceding time, do I think that the time that I spent on a squash court or in the gym or doing anything else that I needed to do, was that kind of the most happy time of my day and my month and my year? And would I be happier doing something else? And if that answer to the question is, what, I was the happiest doing that, then that is success to me, because I've basically lived my life on my terms and felt that I wouldn't have done anything else which would have made me happier. And at the end of the day, what is it that we all want to be? We all want to be happy, right? And finding happiness in doing this, which has given me so much, I don't think I can ask for anything more and be grateful anymore for everything that I have been able to do for the last 20 odd years. So I think the use of my time where I've been playing squash or training to be able to play on the biggest stages in the world and being happy with that is now my definition of success.
So nice. I believe that life is a journey unscripted. So tell us one moment from your life or your journey which was entirely unscripted. You never saw it coming, but when it happened, it actually made a huge impact, especially in terms of making you the champion that you are today.
I think we have a series of points in your journey which make it happen, but I think going right back, I think when I was like 6 years old, when my parents separated, that's when my dad moved back to Calcutta. That's the reason why I started playing squash. So, obviously at the time it's not the happiest time in the world, but when you look back, if that hadn't happened, I might never have played squash. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you. Might be doing something else. So I think that kickstarted the journey, so to say, in this space for me. So in a weird way, I think that unscripted moment or time or phase in my life kind of changed my life's trajectory in a way where definitely at that point I didn't think I was going to play a sport, let alone squash, kind of professionally. So you make whatever life throws at you, you got to make the best of it. And I feel like everything works out in the end.
So now we come to the last section of my show where I just want you to give very impromptu responses. Maybe make impromptu choices if it's a choice, or a very, very short, impromptu answer. So, who's your hero on the court and off the court?
I think on the court there was one person called Amir Shabana, former world champion and world number one. Every time I watched him play, I learned a lot. So yeah, Amir Shabana. If anyone wants to learn how to play squash, please watch him.
Okay.
And off the court, it's a tough one, but I think it's between. I think it's my granddad and my grandmom. They're the two
Wow.
most important people in my life. They made me the person I am, and I look up to them for everything. So yeah.
The easiest way to calm your mind, especially before a match.
I think my mind is calmest when I have clarity. So before a match, I basically start thinking about all the tactical plans that I've planned in my head, and that gives me clarity. And when that clarity comes, I'm calm.
So you feel you're in it and you're prepared for it. And
Yeah, it's just like it just fools my mind into not thinking about every other thing under the sun. It kind of focuses your mind on something, like one small thing which is like very narrow in perspective. And I feel like that helps, because otherwise you're thinking about different consequences and different other things, and the moment you're thinking about a multitude of things, it's very difficult to stay
to
calm.
focus. Yeah.
So I think that's what helps me the most.
Do you enjoy watching squash as much as you enjoy playing it?
I do actually. I feel like as I've grown older, watching other people play, I kind of try and see the different nuances, and I enjoy what they do, and I actually quite love it. So yeah, it's a close tussle there.
When not at the squash court, where would you be?
Either at home with my wife, or hopefully both of us together in some really nice restaurant, because we both love food.
Oh, okay. That's nice. And do you ever play any of these games? Board games, video games?
Yeah, board games more, video
Okay.
games not so much.
Ah.
I think there's one board game that we haven't played recently, but we played a lot, especially during COVID. It's this game called Catan.
What would get more etched in your memory? A glorious, easy victory against a strong opponent, or a very tense five setter, no matter whether you won or lost?
I mean, I would like to say it's the easy victory, but I think it's a tense five setter. Because if you win, you've gone through such a roller coaster of emotions,
Yes.
that there are different points that kind of keep coming back to you, and if you lose, it just hurts so much that it doesn't leave you. So I'm guessing I'm going to go with the tense five setter, whether I win or lose.
If you had to define, the following experiences in one word or a few words, what would that be? Commonwealth Games.
Relief, relief at finally doing it.
Doing it.
Yeah.
Asian Games.
Pride. It's the first medal at 2006, and every subsequent games is just pride to be able to play for India and to win for India.
The Malaysian Open Squash Championships.
Validation, because that was during COVID, and we were literally in the hotel room and the squash court. That's it, and it was hard, really hard. But I actually had a very, very good week squash wise, and it was just validation. Not so much for the squash, but just mentally being there to be able to produce that level. I was quite happy with that.
The PSA World Tour.
Journey. It's my journey. It's kind of like taught me everything. I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
And closer to home, the CCI International JSW Indian Squash Circuit.
Ecstasy. Winning at home is always great. I won in a strong field as well. Doing it in CCI in Mumbai was brilliant. So yeah, ecstasy.
You don't live in Calcutta anymore, but is there, some memory that's very close to your heart from there?
I have a massive sweet tooth thanks to my mother. So I think all the sweets from there, the rasgullas are just wow, and there's just so many things. I think food has to be on that list. So I think whenever I think of Calcutta, I think of food and I think of sweets, and it's brilliant.
So talking of those days in Calcutta, sunrise at Maidan or sunset at Princep Ghat?
I'm not the earliest riser, but if I could choose, I would say sunrise at Maidan.
Okay. And Puchka or Kathi roll?
Kathi roll.
Kathi roll.
Kathi roll.
Tea at Flurys or the real tapri chai?
Tapri chai.
Tapri chai?
Tapri chai.
That's full of sugar, which you don't have anymore.
I know, but it's something that we did, especially when we used to play cricket early in the morning. You used to have that, and then after that, there is another thing which is very weird. It's called doodh cola. It's like milk with coke. I used to have that after playing. This was when I was very young, like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So it's like stuck in my memory. So yeah.
So I've heard of cola float, where you have cola with ice cream. I've not heard of doodh cola.
It's literally milk with coke. I just don't know the concoction, like whatever the percentage is, but
a squash lesson that became a lifelong lesson.
So I was playing this guy called Kareem Abdul Gawad once. He's again for World Number One World Champion, and Malcom Willstrop was speaking to me before I went onto court, and he asked me, "What's your plan?" And I was giving him this whole spiel about, "Oh, I need to do this and do that, and this is pattern and that pattern," and he said, "Okay, stop complicating it. All you need to do is make sure that you put one ball more than him on the front wall, because mathematically, if you do that, you're going to win the match." So basically, the answer to my question should be that I am going to be persistent no matter what. Persistence is something which you kind of continuously build with a body of work consistently and find kind of some sort of validation at the end, small pieces which kind of keep validating your effort, and then it gives you more encouragement going forward. So having small wins is always important because it encourages you, like subconsciously. So yes, you must have it within, and I genuinely believe that everyone has it. It's a question of finding it deep inside and bringing it out. So in that sense, you have to build it yourself through different activities on a consistent basis.
Saurav, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. And now that you've decided to play for a few more years, I look forward to having you back on my show to maybe celebrate some more victories and some good moments, and to talk about the journey from now to those victories and to those good moments. And in the meanwhile, I wish you all the very best. I wish that you keep making India proud, and not only that, you mentor many more young squash players who also can make India proud like the way you've done. Thank you very much.